What is up, everyone? It is Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. We've got quite a bit to talk about tonight. Lots of hot takes to get to. We are 66 days away from Las Vegas, which means we have to talk about ticket sales. We got to talk about John Cena, and we have to talk about the Elimination Chamber. So get ready. This is the Casual Wrestling Community Show.
Notorious.
Big it up, big it up.
No big soapbox speech this week. Kind of took it easy the last 7 days. Your boy Nerdy D was in the ER last week for an irregular heartbeat, so I've been just kind of chilling the last week. Nothing to worry about. It was food related. Got to get healthy. Got to start losing some weight as we roll into Las Vegas. Got to get in walking shape for WrestleMania. Lauren's put me on a super healthy diet. Got to drop some LBs to get, just make sure everything's working correct as we go to Las Vegas. So I've just been kind of taking it easy, prepping for the show, not doing much. I've stayed out of the Discord a little bit, but just kind of chilling. We didn't get to do the WrestleMania predictions last week, but I do have my new card locked in. I'm ready to go for this Thursday. Me and Wavy D will chop it up and let you guys know what's changed in the last 2 weeks as far as what we think's gonna go down in Las Vegas. But like I said, man, we're 66 days out of WrestleMania. This shit is absolutely flying by. 17 days until the Elimination Chamber. This is insane. Things are not shaping up exactly the way a lot of people told me they would. It looks like Io Sky is out of the WrestleMania main event at this point. Unless something wild happens, and I want to get y'all's take on this at the end of the show, but it looks like Rhea Ripley will have a different appointment or a different opponent at WrestleMania this year. But let's jump in with tonight's opening take, which is scheduled for 5 minutes and is brought to you by
Milwaukee Mike, he calls it right. No sugarcoating, just straight up fight. Through the cold and the fire, he stands his ground. When he drops that mic, you hear the sound. Hot takes heavy.
All right, so the opening take of this week's show comes from my guy, Milwaukee Mike, and he says, Triple H should have had Jey Uso wait until after Elimination Chamber to announce his opponent. I don't know how I feel about knowing the winner of the Elimination Chamber automatically gets Cody Rhodes. I would have liked to have the mental back and forth. So I agree with the tone of what Mike's saying here, but I think the reality is that Triple H, I'm imagining, thinks he needs the full 66 days to really sell us on this Jey Uso and Gunther feud. There's still a lot of work that has to be done with Gunther to make this feel like a main event quality matchup in Las Vegas. The way I look at this right now is I have this match slotted into a mid-card situation. Because here's the reality. We pretty much know the outcome of what's going to happen. So now Triple H has the impossible task of making us care about this for the next 66 days. He has to get us to emotionally invest into this match. Because I understand the optics of this match. I understand the purpose of this match. I just don't fully grasp what Triple H is going to do to keep us excited for 66 days going into this match. We all know Jey Uso has to be a 95% favorite going into WrestleMania. Like, it's hard to see a world where Triple H tries to shove Gunther down our throats one more time. It can happen. I believe Triple H is that type of booker that it could happen, but I think it's more likely that what we're getting at WrestleMania is the optics of Jey Uso winning the title in front of 80,000 people and him yeeting for like 20 minutes after the match. It's going to be a spectacle. It's going to be a celebration. It's going to be a party. It's going to be a fun time. But how do you make this work from a storytelling perspective? That's my biggest question. Because if they just go the boring Gunther is better than you route, I think this is gonna get old extremely fast. I think there's an opportunity to really have Gunther finally get nasty, get mean, get over as a proper bad guy. Take a page out of the MJF playbook and just get a little bit nasty when it comes to Jey Uso. Because the best case scenario coming out of WrestleMania, the best case scenario is Jey Uso's the new world heavyweight champion. And fans can yeet with him night after night until that energy runs out. But the best case scenario is that Gunther comes out of WrestleMania having lost the title, but having legitimate heel heat. And using that to come out of WrestleMania to be a new, nasty, darker version of Gunther, which I'm not banking on this happening. I'm just saying this is best case scenario. Best case scenario, Gunther loses to Jey Uso and heading into Backlash out of anger turns on Ludwig Kaiser and really destroys his relationship there and becomes a gimmicked heel. But the big question mark coming out of this match is absolutely got to be, what do you do with Gunther once he's not a world champion? Because that's all we know him as. That's our relationship with Gunther is Intercontinental Champion Gunther and World Heavyweight Champion Gunther. The question has to be asked, what do you do when he no longer has that to identify with? So, Mike, I agree with the tone of what you're saying. I just think Triple H is assuming he needs 66 days to really sell us on this feud. There's still a lot of work that has to be done. But like I said, the biggest question mark coming out of this match is what do you do with Gunther? Because the Jey Uso story, like the fans are behind Jey Uso. They're gonna yeet with him through SummerSlam. They're gonna yeet with him through Survivor Series. They're gonna yeet with him all the way to Crown Jewel. Jey Uso will be world champion until the crowd fatigues. That's the reality of that situation. Is Triple H has no intention of taking that title off of Jey Uso until the crowd fatigues. So that's kind of set in stone. Jay's going to ride the wave of excitement, and when he crashes, that'll be the end of his reign. But Gunther, on the other hand, as weird as it is, Gunther is in danger of becoming irrelevant. When you make someone's character solely about being world champion, it's tough to see the value in that guy when he's not champion anymore. You can go immediately to a tag team, which I think is kind of a cop-out for someone like Gunther. If you immediately throw him into a tag team with like Ludwig Kaiser, have him win a tag team title, that protects him for a little bit, but you're just delaying the inevitable when it comes to Gunther. I think Gunther, he's probably due a break, to be honest. He's had a long run as world heavyweight champion. He had a solid run as Intercontinental champion. We probably have a little bit of Gunther fatigue if he doesn't make any real big changes. I'd love a situation where post WrestleMania, having lost the World Heavyweight Championship, he turns on Ludwig Kaiser. Kaiser goes babyface. They have a big match at maybe a Backlash, and Kaiser actually goes over Gunther, and Gunther just takes some time off. Gunther disappears. He goes away. We're able to kind of refresh our brains on what Gunther can be and what Gunther is. And then maybe Gunther comes back right around the King of the Ring tournament, inserts himself into the tournament and wins the tournament again, and that kind of keeps the momentum of the winning version of Gunther alive. Because I don't really have an issue if Gunther wins King of the Ring again. I think that is a good way maybe to reintroduce him back into the title, like into the title situation, or just back into the kind of main event echelon of WWE. But I don't think I don't think, Mike, I don't think the clarity of knowing that the winner of the Elimination Chamber match gets Cody Rhodes, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that devalues the Elimination Chamber match at all. I know a lot of people have been throwing predictions out that they thought maybe Jey Uso would go after Cody. I don't think that was ever the case. I never was on that train of thought. I think from the minute Jey Uso lost to Gunther at Saturday Night Main Event, that's when I predicted him to win the Royal Rumble, and that's when I knew this plan is set in stone. This is what we're getting at WrestleMania. We're getting Jey Uso versus Gunther, kind of the finishing of the story for Jey Uso. This seems to be the trend in WWE. But I think more importantly, Mike, I think that the clarity helps Cody Rhodes. I think we forget Cody's a guy who, if left to his own devices, tends to kind of ramble and mumble and get lost. I think that Cody needs that direct motivation coming out of Elimination Chamber. I think WWE likes the optics of whoever wins at Elimination Chamber, you immediately can flash that graphic of Cody Rhodes versus said superstar. And I'll throw my spoiler alert out here. I think it's John Cena. I know a lot of people have John Cena penciled in to fight Logan Paul. I do believe that we're going to get John Cena versus Cody Rhodes in kind of the turning of the tide, and kind of the old versus the new, both of the guys who carry the flag of the company. I think we might get that, but I don't think that the Elimination Chamber, knowing who the champion that winner gets to face, I don't think that doesn't cause me any concern. I get you could play the mind games, you could tease this longer, but I think from a marketing standpoint, you want to start printing the posters as soon as possible, especially because last year we got right up to the finish line not knowing a lot of what was going on, and there was a lot of us who complained and talked about, hey, we don't know what night 1 is, we don't know what night 2 is. I think right now WWE likes the idea of kind of solidifying these matches and going, we can start showing the poster for Jey Uso and Gunther right now. And after Elimination Chamber, we can immediately start showing the poster for Cody Rhodes versus insert winner of Elimination Chamber. And we can show that right now. We can start marketing, pushing for Las Vegas based on knowing that these two matches are solidified. So I don't have an issue with that. I think they want to start plastering those posters everywhere. So to kind of tie this up, Mike, I 100% understand what you're saying. And I think selfishly from a deeper fan's perspective, that would be fun. I just think from a marketing perspective, WWE sees the value in we can start solidifying and announcing matches right now. So, all right, it's time to switch over a little bit. This is a segment we called Plugged In, where we plug the headphones in and we listen in to a 1-minute snippet from another podcast, and we give our casual take on that show. This week, this was given to me by We Too Deep. This is a snippet from the Stevie Richards podcast, which I don't know a lot about Stevie Richards. I see that he was a professional wrestler at some point in time. He also has a partner, James Romero, who produces the show. They do a good job. But I pulled a little 1-minute excerpt from this that I wanted to talk about. Let's drop it right now.
Charlotte Flair. I remember, and I sort of thought it was a bit like the Britt Baker thing. She's been gone a while, and I don't think anyone missed her. And then she wins the Royal Rumble. She's sort of just fast-tracked back to WrestleMania straight away. And I just don't think that's what the people wanted. I mean, there are so many, good women there who could have used that spot instead. Like your Rhea Ripley's and Liv Morgan's, or your Roxanne Perez, or your Stephanie Vaquer's, or whoever it might be, or your Tiffany Stratton's. Just there's so many people out there now, so many women out there who are so good, that I think it's just a bit of a bitter taste in fans' mouths that we're just going straight back to, years prior.
Why not have it to where somebody like a Roxanne Perez or anybody that's new starts talking trash about Charlotte Flair, and Charlotte makes her return at WrestleMania? Maybe she squashes her out of nowhere, and here we are.
Here's my take on this. I first off, all respect to James Romero and Stevie Richards. This is my casual opinion on what you guys were talking about. I think a lot of people that are too close to the business tend to get emotionally involved when they talk about the mainstays in sports. And what I'm referring to is, in the NBA, you have LeBron James haters who hate him for no other reason that he's been the best for a long time, and you're mad about that, right? We just saw the Super Bowl. There was a large group of Patrick Mahomes haters, and they hate him because he's been the best and he's won for a long time. In wrestling, we've seen the fatigue with the Roman Reigns, right? We've seen this. And so clearly, there is the upswell of the Charlotte Flair hate. But the truth is, this is the reality. Charlotte Flair is the best all-around women's wrestler in the business. I won't argue that point. She's proven it. I was a notorious Charlotte Flair hater the last couple years, but it never was lost. I didn't like the character. It was never lost on me. She was the best in the business. And now we've got to get to the reality of business. And the business is here, she's 38 years old. And at 38 years old, we know Father Time starts working against you. So she's got maybe 1 or 2 prime WrestleManias left. So now she becomes a commodity, right? And when you're at the end of a superstar's career, I think you have to go all in. You know, so the first guy, James Romero, he lost me a little bit when he was talking. He lost me because he name dropped Roxanne Perez, which we know how I feel about Roxanne Perez, but he also name dropped Stephanie Vaquer as people who could have benefited from winning the Royal Rumble. I gotta ask, who in their right mind really believes right now that WWE would consider putting Roxanne Perez or Stephanie Vaquer on the marquee of a women's WrestleMania match? We talked about the posters in the last segment. You really think front and center WWE considers the idea of putting Stephanie Vaquer or Roxanne Perez on the poster of WrestleMania? That's not how it works. That's not how business works. They're just not ready. And unfortunately, the Royal Rumble is a match that is designed to forward one of the 2 biggest women's stories in the business. But I think what's lost on a lot of people is and you could go listen to the full podcast. I asked you to go listen to the full podcast so you can have context to what I'm saying, because I did listen to more than just the 1 minute. But go listen to one podcast. They talk about Charlotte Flair needing to get the emotional support of the people behind her. I think what's lost on a lot of people here, Charlotte was never coming back as babyface. WWE doesn't need another women's babyface. It may seem like Charlotte came back slightly babyface, but that was never. Charlotte came back as Charlotte. She came back neutral, but Charlotte has said she's naturally a heel. So Charlotte's going to naturally slide back into that heel position. The reason that they did, promotional with her on top of a yacht and not her going through rehab was, I believe they want her to be the heel in this storyline. We have to stop with the idea. We have to stop with this concept that there's a best person or most deserving person to win the Royal Rumble, because that's just bullshit. This is a business. The person who wins the Royal Rumble is the person who fits the storyline they're trying to tell. And the truth is, Tiffany Stratton is just too likable right now to be a heel. And they know that. They know it doesn't make sense to have a babyface Charlotte Flair and a heel Tiffany Stratton. At best, they both go into the match heel. I believe that in the next couple of weeks, Tiffany Stratton is going to turn babyface. Charlotte Flair just makes sense in every metric. Every metric that you can talk about winning the Royal Rumble, Charlotte Flair makes sense. So you can hate on the fact that she was gone for a year, but the reality is she's put in the work to be that person. Here, let's just talk about it from a storytelling perspective. Here's what I believe is going to happen. I believe Charlotte Flair is going to beat Tiffany Stratton at WrestleMania, and she's going to win the championship, and it's going to be the year of Charlotte. But what you ask, well, what does that do? It sets up a redemption arc for Tiffany Stratton, because I don't think now is the time to get Tiffany over Charlotte Flair. I just don't think we're at that point in time. I think we need more time with this. But WWE is in the era of redemption arcs. So what you do is you have Charlotte Flair beat Tiffany Stratton at WrestleMania, and you spend the next 365 days telling the story of Tiffany Stratton scrapping and fighting and clawing to get back to that opportunity to fight Charlotte Flair, who next year will be 39 going on 40. And that's when you pass the torch to the future. But I'll ask this out loud, Stevie Richards and James Romero. Who was the better choice then? Like, honestly, don't give me Roxanne Perez. Don't give me Stephanie Vaquer, because we know they're not putting them on the poster. So throw me an Alexa Bliss. Do you really think WWE wanted to put Alexa Bliss versus Tiffany Stratton as a main match at WrestleMania. They're trying to get Tiffany over. Alexa's almost impossible to get over against. You could get over against Charlotte, but it's hard to get over against someone like Alexa, who is just an absolute fan favorite. So they don't want that matchup. I understand. Here's the disconnect. We think that whoever gets the biggest pop should get the title match. That's not how it works. It's whoever makes the most sense going into the story. So it's not Alexa Bliss, right? So you're telling me it's Roxanne Perez? Like, you really think that WWE wants the optics of a highly unknown Roxanne Perez going against a giant Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania? I don't think, they don't want Tiffany and Roxy, because those are two, as it is, Tiffy is a wild card going into WrestleMania. And I think it's the same with Stephanie Vaquer. I would go on record and say I doubt 80% of fans at WrestleMania, maybe we should do this when we get there, I think 80% of fans wouldn't know who Stephanie Vaquer was if you showed them a picture. You got your hardcore NXT fans who will know, but I think a lot of casual wrestling fans would just have no clue who she was. I think when she came out at the Royal Rumble, there were probably a lot of fans who were like, who's that? Who's that? And now that's intriguing. That gets you to watch NXT and go learn more, but I don't think you throw that person into WrestleMania. So Charlotte Flair just makes sense. Charlotte Flair makes sense. And to say, later on, Steve Richards goes on to say that you have to ask the question, did anybody miss me while I was gone? And he kind of insinuates that no one missed Charlotte Flair. That's an insult to Charlotte Flair. That's an insult to the testament to Triple H's booking around her absence. You don't think WWE would have been better the last 365 days if Charlotte Flair was around? That's insane. That's an insane thing to say to me. I understand we may do while she was not around, but we definitely missed her. And then to kind of get behind the idea that, well, they should have shown all of the footage that Charlotte put on her Instagram. They should have shown that on WWE. Sure, if they were trying to bring her back as babyface, that absolutely works. But you have to separate, that was Charlotte Flair building her personal brand, her redemption story outside of wrestling, versus Charlotte Flair coming back as a heel, being on the yacht, being I'm better than you, being I'm going to break records, being I'm going to win championships. There's just an absolute difference. She doesn't need the emotional connection because Charlotte Flair's good at getting people to dislike her. But here's the biggest thing that bothered me about that segment from that podcast was the take about Charlotte Flair not winning the Royal Rumble, but yet having a Roxanne Perez come out and call out a Charlotte Flair week after week, call her out, say, I need the challenge. And Charlotte comes out, and at WrestleMania, Charlotte Flair squashes Roxanne Perez. Who the fuck does that help? How, in what world does that make sense? That is completely worse than Charlotte Flair winning the Royal Rumble. Now you take a Roxanne Perez, somebody who there is potential there, but you've got to nurture it and you've got to build it up. You take her, you bring her out at WrestleMania, the show of all shows, the biggest stage, and you have her squashed in the 10 seconds. All of a sudden, everything I've ever said about Roxanne Perez becomes blatantly clear. She's not big enough. She's not strong enough. She doesn't have the it factor. That all gets put in a spotlight if you do it that way. So who the fuck does that help? I mean, can you imagine the outrage from the internet if Roxy gets squashed? That's an insane take to me. I just, he went on to say that the Liv Morgans, the Raquel Rodriguez, the Nia Jax, they've earned that spot at WrestleMania. Unfortunately, that's just not the way WrestleMania works. It is not. We've learned the hard way. WrestleMania is not a culmination of what you've done all year. It is the biggest, the brightest, the biggest name you can put on the poster and who can sell the tickets and what makes sense for the story. That's it. Ask CM Punk. It's not what you did all year. Now you could argue that's not fair, but you could also have to have a hard realization. That's why WWE is the biggest wrestling entertainment company in the world. I just, what world do we live in where Charlotte Flair is gone a year and we pretend like she's been forgotten? He went on to compare like the Zoe Starks to Charlotte and say they were as deserving. I think, that's a weirdly emotional argument. I just think that, and this is not a shot, but this is, I tend to see this with people who are in the business and people who like to comment on the business, there is this sense of like having to say the hipster thing and having the hipster mentality and wanting to make it cool to shit on the goats. They want to make it cool to shit on the people that the casual fans like. So people like Charlotte, they want to shit on her. But the reality is, casual fans like to woo. They like to hate Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair sells tickets. You know, maybe not to the IWC, but to the 80% of fans who are casual based, Charlotte's absolutely the right decision to win the Royal Rumble. And I guarantee you 6 months from now, we'll hear all of these talking heads saying the same thing, that WWE made the absolute right decision. And a year from now, when Tiffany circles all the way around and we're emotionally invested in that story, you'll hear the same things. Let's get take number 2. This one comes from...
We too deep, no way out now. Drowning in the takes, better learn how to swim or bow. No fake talk.
So We Too Deep, my man, co-host of the Slapping Meat Wrestling podcast and a valued member of the casual wrestling community, he drops Elimination Chamber should go back to being just a match type and not a whole premium live event. Also should go back to having a championship defended in the chamber. Now, Deep, you know, you're my guy. I respect the hell out of your opinion, but we fundamentally disagree on this point. I think any other year, I might have jumped on board and co-signed what you said, except this year I kind of am interested in what the chamber provides as far as story potential. I like the idea of the Elimination Chamber feeling gritty and desperate, feeling like you get the leftovers from the Royal Rumble. It feels like a last chance. It eliminates that 50-50 guess of who's going to fight for the other title. We get 6 legitimate names in a chamber who, let's be honest, it wouldn't shock me if any of those 6 come out as the winner this year. We got CM Punk, Seth Rollins. I'm assuming here. I'm assuming. This is my guess. But we got CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, John Cena, Logan Paul, and then I assume the 6th name is going to be a big name as well. Give me Braun Breaker. I'd love to see Braun Breaker in this match, mixing it up with a couple of teases that he could win this thing. Give me an Aleister Black return would be fun. I think that's a great way to introduce him into some stories. Just throw him into the fire right off the bat. But the reality is we got 6 guys who are going to be vying for a last-minute chance to get to WrestleMania. And we know Seth Rollins wants it. We know CM Punk wants it. We know John Cena wants it. We know Drew McIntyre wants it. So I think the level of desperation that the chamber presents this year actually intrigues me. It actually makes me look forward to this match. There's the weird booking time in between Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber where it's tough to book because you know the destination of where we want to go, but you have to wait to pull the trigger on some of the stories so that you don't get there too soon. So these qualifying matches make Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown feel like they have a little bit of purpose, a little bit of value. They to me, they give me a reason to watch Mondays and Fridays in this time where it could be notoriously weird, because if you start 66 days out for every story, there's going to be a lot of fatigue as we get up to WrestleMania. You could start the Jane Gunther because I think it needs it, but you can't start every story. So what you get is qualifying matches and you get teases of maybe is it Roman, Seth, and Punk? Is it Punk and Cody? You get all these teases. But I do like the idea of Elimination Chamber falling where it does. On the flip side, now I will play devil's advocate here. The chamber is a risky situation. It is a risky match to have when you're like 30 days out from WrestleMania. So I 100% understand the argument and the hesitation of having this like the go home premium live event to WrestleMania. It never fails. It feels like somebody's going to leave Elimination Chamber banged up and maybe not able to go into WrestleMania. You could ask the question, I guess, do you flip the two around? And I know it's blasphemous because January is the Royal Rumble month, but what if, let's just play a hypothetical, what if you did Elimination Chamber early January so that anybody who gets banged up has time to recover? And then the Royal Rumble became that last desperation attempt where one person against all odds could win the Royal Rumble and get that other match? I think it's a question worth asking. I don't know if there's value, but my question is then, if not Elimination Chamber, what's the other option? Like, do we just, whoever is the other champion, just whatever story they've kind of currently been in, we just roll with that? Do we just do a random 6-man, match or a random fatal 4-way? I'd like to hear other options to really weigh out how do we get to that other title match in an exciting way. Because I genuinely like the suspense of not knowing who the clear favorite is heading into Elimination Chamber. I've thrown my cards at John Cena, but I by no means am as confident in that as I was in, like, when I was confident in Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble. I'm not confident in a prediction that John Cena wins the Elimination Chamber. I think that is just logically where my brain goes. But I think there's going to be 6 names that have potential to take that second title match at WrestleMania. Truth be told, this is the first year where I believe Triple H has a little bit of confidence in the fact that, let's say somebody gets hurt at Elimination Chamber. I think Triple H knows he's almost got too many top stars right now. And I believe he thinks, I could audible out of this and be just fine. Whether it's, if CM Punk gets hurt, Drew McIntyre could step up. If Seth Rollins gets hurt, you still got other situations and stories you could tell. So I think, I will say, I understand the idea that in years past I might have agreed. But this year, I am intrigued by this Elimination Chamber. Let's jump into this week's Big Take. So this week's Big Take comes from our guy Bully Ray on the Busted Open podcast. And he had an interesting take that I had to listen to twice because I had to kind of really wrap my head around the idea and the possibility of this happening. But he said, I think John Cena appearing in TNA and challenging Joe Hendry for the World Championship could help the health of the entire business. It would breathe life into TNA and nobody ever thought could possibly happen. And that's why I like it. I'm a big fan of shock and awe in the wrestling business, and that would be quite shocking. In a dream world, in a complete fantasy world where you have John Cena for an unlimited amount of dates in 2025, I absolutely love this. I think from a fantasy booking situation, this makes absolute sense. The issue I have as a casual fan, Bully Ray, is in the real world, this is WWE, and we've been told that John Cena has a limited amount of dates he's going to give us. And the truth is, Bully, I'll be real honest with you, a lot of us casual fans have no access or even the knowledge. I don't know how to watch TNA wrestling, and I think that's a little bit of a problem when it comes to logistics for WWE. From a fantasy standpoint, man, I understand 100%. But I could counter this a little bit and maybe just tweak your idea just a little bit. What if we did this on WWE instead of TNA? The initial meeting could happen on TNA. Let's say a TNA pay-per-view ends, John Cena's music hits, he comes out, he confronts Joe Hendry, and then we immediately move that situation to WWE TV. For the first time we got to talk about it, we can, show how WWE likes to cut to other clips and show, hey, this is what happened on TNA. This is why you should be paying attention to TNA. But the bulk of this story, the bulk of this situation moves to WWE TV, where we're all comfortable, where, we keep Netflix happy, we keep USA happy. We don't just send the whole ratings stock over to TNA at this point. Now, I understand it makes TNA healthy, but this is a partnership between TNA and WWE. They don't own them. So I don't think WWE's in the business of promoting TNA to that level. But I would say, like, you could have John Cena cut his promos on Monday Night Raw week after week, and Joe Hendry could cut rebuttals on TNA, which you would assume for the hardcore fan who wants the full story, they would tune into TNA to see what Joe Hendry was saying in his rebuttal. For WWE, they could also take some of that Joe Hendry stuff and put it on their social, and it would just be kind of a symbiotic world. I like the story. I like the idea of Joe Hendry and John Cena. It feels like it works. It feels like the chemistry would be right. It feels like they would have some good promo. This feels like a great SummerSlam style match to me. So I am all about it, but I just can't imagine a world where WWE uses multiple dates that they have with John Cena to boost TNA ratings. I think right now Triple H knows this is a numbers game, especially with TKO and all this stuff. And so every time you put John Cena on TV, you want him in front of a WWE camera. That's the way I believe it. But there's also the other logistical nightmare to me of this situation that we have to talk about, and that is, how do you book the match, right? Because if it's for the TNA championship, does John Cena win the TNA championship? Does he beat Joe Hendry and win the TNA championship? Logistically, how does that work? Do we count that as a world title? How does that affect records? How does that work? There's no way, right? John Cena loses to Joe Hendry on his farewell tour. It just doesn't feel like John Cena should just be racking up losses on his farewell tour. So I guess you could play a DQ thing. You could do something like that, but it sounds fun to me in theory. I think it's a logistical nightmare. I think the reality is that if we have like 35 Cena dates, there's probably 12 other superstars that make more sense. So from a fantasy booking point, I love the idea of Bully. I think it absolutely works, but with a deeper knowledge of what's going on, and you have a much deeper knowledge of what's going on than I could, you got to let me know how that works. You got to make it work for me logistically, how John Cena can win or not win. How do you book this? What is the story that surrounds this? That, to me, that's the information I need. All right, let's drop take number 3 here.
We drop hot takes when we take the stage. We're the winners. They better learn your name. So whether you love us or you hate us, we are saving wrestlers.
So take number 3 comes from my guy, The Witters, in the Casual Wrestling Discord. And this comes off of a question someone asked. And that question was, should WWE be worried about WrestleMania ticket sales? Witter says no, because the tickets are barely affordable for families. When the ticket price drops, it will smooth out. So if you haven't seen, I think there was like a tweet put out by somebody that basically said it's looking like there's like 45,000 tickets sold for each night of WrestleMania. That and you know, they were kind of, it looked like they were kind of trying to say this is alarming. You know, WrestleMania is not going to sell out. But I agree 100% with Witters here that based on the information presented to us, if this information is true, and the max capacity of Allegiant Stadium, from what I Googled, is 72,000. That's according to Google. If they open it up and they pack it out, it's 72,000. That means we roughly have about 25,000 tickets each night available, if we assume this information is correct. So I got on Ticketmaster because I have seen a lot of people go, these tickets are outrageously priced. And so I got on, looked, and the reality is you could get a mid-level ticket for about $500 each. Now, that's not horrible for WrestleMania. I've bought WrestleMania tickets before. It's a little on the high side, but it's still, this is, you know, WrestleMania is becoming bigger. WWE is becoming bigger each year, so I think that's to be expected. You know, floor seats are out of the question. They're ridiculous. They're in the thousands and thousands of dollars. So, you know, that's crazy. But should WWE be worried? No. Simple answer is no. Why? What is there to worry about? They can adjust pricing at any point in time. As we get closer to the show, they can, you know, they can figure out ways. Who I think should be worried, and this is kind of a side topic, and maybe this is a good thing, is secondary ticket markets. I think secondary ticket markets have to be shitting their pants right now because there is so many good tickets left at not insane prices. I say that $500 not being insane, but I think for where some of those tickets are off camera side, that's not a horrible market. So secondary markets have to be insanely nervous with the amount of tickets left as we get near WrestleMania, because WWE can just drop ticket prices. That's not an issue. The closer we get, they'll fill that stadium up. There's no worry. And the truth is, with the amount that they're charging right now for the tickets, they've probably made up a lot of revenue just based off of people who have bought tickets. But here's something that I don't think is getting talked about enough, and I think it's a reality, and that is we're doing it as a community. there's a lot of people who are showing up to Las Vegas without tickets to WrestleMania with the idea we're just going to watch it at a bar. We're just going to watch it in a hotel room. I think that should be a little bit of a concern for WWE with high ticket prices. Is Vegas is such a fun place that it might be a little bit more exciting to watch it outside of the venue, especially if the cards don't play out to be super exciting. I think there's other ways. I wonder how many groups of friends or other wrestling communities said, fuck it, let's go, and we'll just see what happens. Because there's the idea that if the tickets get cheap enough, I'm sure somebody in our community, somebody's going to pull the trigger and they're going to buy tickets. They're going to panic and they got real cheap and they're going to, they're going to go. But a lot of us are just content being around the hoopla. But two other factors that I also haven't heard much talked about is WrestleMania is on Easter, which is really wild. That's a wild. When WrestleMania is and WWE sits down to do this, I don't know, is that like a missed thing, or do they just think people just don't care and they'll just travel? Easter's a rough travel time. Things are expensive, and so that's interesting to me as well. But I think the biggest thing that I'll talk about is we don't know the card yet, and this was a problem last year. And when you don't know the card, there's a lot of people who are not going to make the same mistake as they did last year and pull the trigger on tickets early when I don't know what I'm buying tickets for. That's a really expensive investment when you don't know what you're going to see. Because the reality is, The Rock could still commit. He could commit tonight too. And then if you have tickets to night one, you go, oh, I'm a piece of shit. I don't have tickets to see The Rock, right? Or we don't know what night CM Punk's going to wrestle on. And I think a lot of people buy tickets assuming this is going to be one of the last few WrestleManias we see CM Punk at. John Cena is a huge wild card, right? Because this is going to be one of John Cena's last WrestleManias. And so if you don't know what night he's on and you are going solely to be a part of that moment, then you haven't bought your ticket yet. We don't even know what night Rhea Ripley's going to be on. We don't know what night Bianca Belair is going to be on. Lots of people buy tickets based on one specific match. So I don't think there's anything to panic over until the card starts to come together. We know the moving parts and we see the superstars who are on each night and the cards fill out. I think people will start to buy tickets. The needle will start to move. There'll be some legends thrown in. There'll be all the moving parts come together. I think we learned our lesson from Philadelphia, and that is if you're going to wait this long to tell us who's on the card, we're not going to jump and buy the tickets immediately. All right, it is time to, unfortunately, take a IWC take.
111, 110.
So this take comes from Tony 2 times via the Casual Wrestling email. Tony 2 times says, why can't casual fans see how good DIY is? Triple H is showing you the best tag team in the world, but you refuse to pay attention. I'm a little bit split here because I am a fan of Tommaso Ciampa, and I think I am a fan of Johnny Gargano. I just don't know that together they've been presented to me the way I want to. And I think if there's one flaw with Triple H, it is that he is hard-headed for his guys. I think that there might be a slight genuine disconnect between Triple H and what casual fans want from the mid-card. I think he nails the top of the card consistently. I think his finger is on the pulse at the top of the card, but I think there's a part of me that believes Triple H books the mid-card with his heart and not his brain. Point an example, Lyra Valkyria. Point an example, DIY. We can go a little higher up the card. I still think it's a mid-card situation, but we go Gunther. Those all feel like Triple H booking with his heart. Like, it sometimes feels like Triple H is shoving things down our throats. Because you can't tell me, the reality is that Lyra Valkyria as a mid-card champion is a better WrestleMania situation than like a Bianca Belair as the Intercontinental Champion going into WrestleMania. You can't tell me that like a Bianca Belair Alexa Bliss match for the women's IC title isn't better than what we're getting right now. Now, there's perspective that we could possibly get Becky Lynch, but we don't know that at this point. At this point, we don't know what's happening with Lyra Valkyria. I stand on business right now saying that I think Braun Breaker should be the world heavyweight champion instead of Gunther. I think that is Triple H booking with his heart and not his head. I still, for the life of me, think that the Street Profits are the best tag team on SmackDown, which, once again, I think that's Triple H booking with his heart and not his head. Now, little sidetrack here. The rebranding of the Street Profits looked absolutely amazing. I like the darker, grittier feel to the team. I like the acknowledgement that they're not going to break up. They're going to stay together. We could roll with that. So maybe we're headed in the right direction here. But here's the thing. I don't blame Triple H for this style of booking. It's human. He's not an AI. He's going to book for what he thinks is the best situation and for different types of fan. If he genuinely believes with his heart of heart that DIY is the best tag team, then his booking makes sense. But you're going to have to give them better stories. You're going to have to give them more personality. Unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're a casual wrestling fan, WWE does not revolve around the X's and O's of in-the-ring wrestling, which Gargano and Ciampa they're good at, right? They need more personality. And I think giving them a microphone this last week is helpful. We're going to need to see a lot more of that. But I think to answer Tony 2 times, why can't casual fans see how good DIY is? I don't think it's that we don't see how good they are. It's that we're not getting the DIY that we want. And we want a high personality DIY. We want a little bit of that comic relief. I think right now we have tension between Gargano trying to be comedic, but Ciampa trying to be a little more stiff and straight-laced. I think they're going to have to find the tone and the balance of what works for them. Maybe some better storylines, right, Tony? Like, I know you IWC guys overestimate the value of a Motor City Machine Guns, but they just didn't connect with casual wrestling fans. We just saw 2 old generic white guys. That's what we saw as casual wrestling fans. You guys had a prior connection through like indie wrestling and TNA. We don't have that history. So when we see a Motor City Machine Guns versus a DIY in the Royal Rumble, we kind of viewed it as a match that was getting in the way of everything we really wanted to see that night. And so I think Triple H is going to have to figure out how to get DIY to connect, because they have all the pieces. They can talk on a microphone. They're good in the ring. They have personality. He's just going to have to figure out how to get that to shine through the way he did when they were NXT guys, because we don't have, I think Triple H banks a little bit on the idea that people have this vast knowledge of who they were in NXT, and a lot of people like me, we don't possess that knowledge. So I think that's the disconnect there. But like, you know, we can't argue. If we get Lyra Valkyria versus Becky Lynch, that'll be a cool match. And that's a Triple H, that's a Triple H exclusive booking idea. I think if we get DIY versus the Street Profits, I'm probably cool there. And I think I'll be excited for that match. But if Triple H, I've read, thinks that, DIY is his edge in Christian, he's going to have to start booking them that way. He's going to have to give them bigger matches. He's going to have to give them bigger opportunities. He's going to have to take some risk and put them in some ladder matches and some tables matches and some of those high gimmick matches. I don't think 2 out of 3 falls is ever going to be what brings a casual wrestling fan in. Because for me, like one pin is enough. That's enough. I don't need 2 out of 3 falls, especially because I think it leads to predictive booking. It leads to predictive pacing. So I'll say, I don't think that casual fans are not sold on DIY. I think the reality is we just need to see more personality. Let's get to the 4th and final take from the Discord.
Welcome to the junkyard, step inside the ring. We talk that trash, let the steel chair swing. No rules, no filter, just raw and loud. If you're soft, tap out. This ain't your crowd.
This take comes from my guy, my AEW brother, Junkyard James, host of the Beyond the Junkyard podcast. Make sure to check that out. He says, congrats to Ricky Starks on making it to NXT. Was WWE tampering again? That contract was signed pretty fast. What's the over-under on how long until he is relegated to WWE speed? All right, James, this might shock you a little bit, But I'm going to agree with you 100% on the first part of this take. And that is released February 10th and on NXT television February 11th before the ink was even dry. That is fast. That is fast. And that means the conversations were had before we got to where we are. Here's where I'll counter you, James. And this is the argument I've made for a long time. Why is tampering a thing in pro wrestling? Like, obviously, if someone isn't happy and they want to switch companies, why is it not okay for them to start putting out feelers to see what the options are on the other side? Tony Khan did not have to release Ricky Starks. He absolutely did not have to. I think it was the right thing to do, but he did not have to. So I don't understand why tampering is this big deal. If AEW had no plan for him, and yes, I've heard the stories. They presented him multiple different storylines. But when someone checks out emotionally, they're checked out. They're not going to want a job. They're not going to work hard. And the reality is, if you don't value Ricky Starks at the same level that maybe an NXT does, then let him go. But why? I don't understand why that's a big deal. The same way I didn't feel like it was a big deal when Edge left WWE and showed up a week or two later on AEW. I felt like that was the right situation, right? There's no way Adam Copeland didn't have some conversation with, he's got family members in AEW. There's no way they weren't having conversations about, hey, you should come over here. You can do the things you want to do. And if WWE had no reason to keep Edge under contract, they did the right thing by letting him go to the other company. The reality is these conversations are had. These conversations, you can't, CM Punk, he could say whatever he wants, but he had to see there was a door open in WWE at some point, that they were receptive to the idea of him making the jump. It goes both ways. Bobby Lashley someone put a bug in Bobby Lashley's ear at some point that said, hey, if you came to AEW, you'd be on TV all the time. You'd have every opportunity in the world. These conversations happen. There's a part of me that believes deep down inside that somebody in WWE, not a Triple H, but maybe someone lower level, had a conversation with somebody in AEW, and there was a conversation that was like, hey, we'll let Cedric Alexander go. If you let Ricky Starks go, then both of these guys can be happy, and you gain somebody that you need for your storytelling. We gain somebody that we see value in. It's almost like a trade happened to me. That's what I truly believe happened in this situation. Now, where I will counter you, James, where I will counter you and I will push back a little bit is the idea that Ricky Starks is a WWE speed guy. I don't think so. I think that Ricky Starks fits the WWE mold, especially the NXT mold. He can talk. He's about 6 foot tall. He's not huge, but he breaks my micro barrier of wrestlers. Like I said, he could talk. And I told you guys last week to get over with casual wrestling fans, which let's remember, I'd say in NXT, you got about 40% casual fans, and the main roster, you got about 80% casual fans. Let's remember, casual fans are attracted to guys who could do one or two things extremely well, and that's what Ricky Starks can do. He can talk well, and he has a definite look. And I know I've seen, this is a little problematic to me, is when people go, yeah, but he got cooked by MJF. He got cooked by Adam Copeland. I'll implore you, go back and watch Ricky Starks and MJF, and I don't think he ever got cooked. Ricky has to stay within his character. MJF has a cheat code. Once you become the guy who says the real wild shit, you could say the real wild shit all the time. Ricky Starks has to work within the parameters of his character, and if he's babyface, you can't go. It's not a rap battle. It's not just two guys unloading on each other. When he did the promo battle with Adam Copeland, that to me felt like the old veteran bullying the young guy. And I think, I'll be real honest with you, I think if you go back and watch the promo between Adam Copeland and Ricky Starks, I think that's the day that Adam Copeland went into business for himself and Ricky Starks said, fuck this company, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, we're not working to better ourselves, better our characters. It's every man for themselves, and I don't want to be. I go back and watch that. I implore you to watch it. I think that's what happened. But I think I'll be honest with you, I think Ricky Starks works in WWE. He's a mid-card guy. He's not gonna be a world champion. I don't think Ricky Starks is gonna be your next WWE champion. I don't think he has the same trajectory as a Jade Cargill, as a Cody Rhodes. But I think Ricky Starks can make a big name for himself in the mid-card of WWE. And what really, I mean, to me, I don't find that as a negative. A guy who, and all it takes is a couple big moments and you could break through that ceiling and you could surpass expectations. But if right now we say the ceiling for a Ricky Starks is Intercontinental Champion on Monday Night Raw, is that a negative thing? There's a lot of people who never reach that level, but I think Ricky Starks will reach that level. I think Ricky Starks is a great compliment to a Dominic Mysterio. I think that as the future builds, Ricky Starks, we'll see him get over. I don't think he's not a speed guy. I won't say that. I think he'll have a nice little run on NXT. But I will say this. I'll leave you with this, James. I watched NXT this week because of Ricky Starks. And so there you go. The case in point, it already worked. I don't watch NXT. I don't have the time to, but seeing Ricky Starks, seeing everybody talk about Ricky Starks, turn it on. I watched the entire episode from Cora Jade, from Uba Femi. I got a lot of I kind of got caught up. And now there's a part of me that goes, well, maybe I'll watch Vengeance Day this weekend and see what that's all about. So case in point is I do think Ricky Starks is a needle mover for WWE. I don't think he'll be in on the speed show. I think he'll be in NXT for a while. My question now, though, is with seeing Ricky Starks so quickly, is with some of these moves that WWE made in the last couple of weeks that we've been talking about, the Sonya Deville's, Cedric Alexander's, off the top of my head I can't remember, but everybody knows there's been cuts from WWE. Is this the WWE's version of like NBA salary cap gymnastics? Have they cleared up this space because of the Rusevs, because of the Malachi Blacks? Are we getting those returns in the next couple of weeks? Like, this is going to make for some interesting TV heading into WrestleMania. All right, so that leaves me this week with the last question. And this is where I drop a question for you guys that I want you to answer for me in the comment section. And this week's question is, I want to ask you guys to let me know in the comments, what do you think about the plans for Rhea Ripley heading into WrestleMania? Because I think a lot of us assumed it was Io Sky getting the title shot. And just going out on a limb here, I think based on Io getting a shot the night after Elimination Chamber, I don't know how that plays as far as who and what's going to happen to Rhea Ripley going into WrestleMania. I could see different scenarios. There's a world where Io could beat Rhea Ripley and we get some kind of triple threat, but I want to hear what you guys think. What do you think is going to be the Women's World Heavyweight Championship match when we get to WrestleMania? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. But that's all I've got for you this week. Keep the hot takes coming for me. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to join the Discord if you haven't already. And as always, I am the Notorious Nerdy D. I will catch you guys next week.